Welcome to week 4 in our 4-week journey through ancient history as well as a good portion of the Middle Ages. I want to talk about a couple things that you're going to be reading about in the chapter. Of course, we've been studying for the past week ancient Greece, and during week 3 we learned about kind of that golden age, Periclean age of ancient Greece during the 5th century. And now we're going to be talking about the 4th century of Greece. And a great portion of the chapter is about Alexander the Great and the empire that he created. And then what happened after he died, the successor kingdoms. If you have your book with you, I want to look at a couple maps. If you don't have it with you, why don't you take a second, pause this, go find your book, and then resume the video. Flip over to page 66 in chapter 2 and you'll see the map of the Persian Empire. And you can see that it's got just a little teeny portion of Europe there in Greece. It's got Egypt, so a small portion of North Africa, but the vast majority of it is in Asia. Go over to the eastern part of the empire and you'll see Bactria. Bactria is basically present-day Afghanistan. Those two regions below Bactria would be present-day Pakistan. Then Parthia, Persia, Media, those regions are going to be present-day Iran. The Tigris and Euphrates area, that's going to be present-day Iraq. And then you see Syria. Lydia, Cilicia, that area is going to be present-day Turkey. So Persian Empire, teeny bit of Europe, and a good portion of at least Western Europe. Now flip over to page 125 in chapter 4, and you'll see Alexander's empire, and it's pretty much the same regions as the Persian Empire. It just has just a little bit more of Europe, you can see, but otherwise pretty much about the same. Looking forward, since we'll be covering the Roman Empire here in 2 more weeks, flip over to page 173. 173 shows the greatest extent of the Roman Empire, the 2nd century CE. And you can see that it does have Egypt, but it's got more of North Africa. It does have Syria and present-day Iraq, where the Tigris and Euphrates are. But it doesn't really have anything east of that. But much of the empire is west of that, so primarily in Europe. Flip back over to page 125 in chapter 4, and you can see in that map, the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the boot of Italy, right, the Italian peninsula. Right. The Roman kingdoms are existing during this time, 4th century, and if you flip over to page 149, you can see what Italy looks like politically, more or less during the same time. And you can see that it's pretty much fragmented. The Roman kingdom has a portion of area around Rome, but otherwise there are a variety of other kingdoms in that area. And it's not going to be until late in that 3rd century before Italy is going to consolidate the entire peninsula into a Roman kingdom. Alexander gets a lot of coverage by historians, but also history lovers, for a couple of reasons. One is this idea of the great man theory of history, and the authors of the textbook have a little video which I'll post if you're interested in that theory. But the idea is that if you look at any kind of event or massive historical event, there's some individual, right, behind it, some individual who lays at the bottom that makes it all happen. Alexander the Great, singular individual who creates this empire. Past 100 years, 150 years, fewer and fewer historians subscribe to that kind of idea, just because they understand that history and events are a lot more complex. A single individual just doesn't have the power over reality, right, to singularly cause great events. You know, there are social forces, there are cultural forces. A lot of forces go into events, historical events. Nevertheless, Alexander Great, even though the history about this individual wasn't written for 300 or 400 years after he died, is a charismatic individual. He's a commander who supposedly was never defeated on the battlefield. Of course, youthful, brave individual, smart. His tutor during his adolescence was Aristotle, the greatest philosopher in Greece. But he's also a pragmatist as well, too. Another reason why Alexander the Great is so revered is because he's the first European to create such a massive empire. Right? We looked at that Persian Empire, pretty much the same size as Alexander's empire. But Xerxes, right, Darius, they're Persians, all right? They're Asians, right? Present-day Iranians, right? Macedonia is in Europe, right? So Alexander is the first European to create a massive empire, which means that for all kind of subsequent empire wannabes, such as Napoleon, right, in the 19th century, these are individuals who see Alexander and his empire as a template, as a model. So when they decide they want to create a massive empire, expand France, expand Germany, whatever it may be, Alexander is their go-to guy. Okay? He kind of creates the template for creating an empire. Of course, creating an empire, not an easy thing to do, but maybe even more difficult is maintaining an empire. And Alexander, after he died, of course, couldn't maintain his empire. But he had some great ideas for how that might be done. In your book, there's a section that talks about cosmopolitanism. Think about cosmos being, you know, the world or the universe. So that's the cosmo, and then politanism, polis, all right, the polity, the city, the state, the nation. So you've got the cosmos in the nation. Right? And the idea is, certainly with Alexander's empire, covering areas from Europe all the way into Asia. It is a region, very multicultural empire, right? Wide variety of peoples, cultures, histories, languages. So how is an individual going to maintain such a diverse area? And he came up with some novel sorts of ideas. I mentioned that he's very much a pragmatist, right? So this is an individual who sets up local rule. Right? The idea is to, of course, emigrate Greeks out of Macedonia into these various cities and the regions that he has conquered. But those individuals tended to be governors of an area, and then kind of lower level administrators and leaders would be local individuals. Right? So the local individuals had to follow the sorts of laws and rules that Alexander and other administrators would create. Right? But it wasn't Alexander's idea to make the whole empire Greek, speak Greek, right? Embrace Greek culture. He understood that he needed to respect and honor the existing cultures, right? And not go in there and sweep away them and replace them with Greek culture. So another couple of things that he did, and the book talks about, of course, he marries, right, a non-Macedonian woman, Roxanne. Okay. He marries off many of his generals, all right, to locals. And there's also suggestions that he wanted to incorporate locals into the military. Right? So this is an individual who believed that multiculturalism was good, and to create and maintain an empire, one of the best way to do that is to honor local sorts of cultures. Um, there's a section in that book that talks about philosophies. That would be things like um, Stoicism and Epicureanism. And two interesting things about these philosophies is that you could consider them as being post-political philosophies. Under Socrates, right, Plato, these individuals during the golden age of Greece, these are individuals who believed that man was a political animal, humankind a political animal. That's what sets him apart. And so the virtuous Greek was an individual who was very much involved in politics. In Hellenistic Greece, right, in Alexander's empire, politics is de-emphasized. Right? Such a large empire, they're no longer city-states. Right? This is a massive empire. Right? And so politics is no longer such an important endeavor for humans. Right? And so some life philosophies are created that are not focused on politics. Right? So Epicureanism, more about pursuing pleasure and decreasing pain, and Stoicism as well too. So two interesting philosophies that arise during this period. The last thing is our mystery religions. So one of the things about religion in Greece, but also Rome, is that they tend to be civil religions. Right? Think about sorts of religions that people subscribe to today: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, whatever it may be. These are the sorts of kind of religions that somehow link you to something larger, right? Link you to the divine, right? Link the individual to the divine. In a civil religion, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, the idea was to link the city-state, a people, to the divine. Right? And that meant that these sorts of religions tend to be very ritualistic, right? Very conservative, right? So these were not the sorts of religions where people would have a very strong emotional relationship with the divine, right? It was more of a ritualistic sort of a religion, right? You know, you would have, you do your annual, your weekly, your monthly sacrifice, right? And that fulfilled your responsibilities, right? As a member of the religion in your city. Another thing about this is, think about Athens, right? Each city-state tended to have their own divine protector, right? So for Athens, it was Athena. Right? The idea is that to keep Athena happy, so that she would bless the city, right? You need to fulfill your responsibilities, all right, to Athena. Mystery religions attracted those individuals who wanted to create some kind of a more emotional link to the divine. Right? They didn't necessarily put aside their responsibilities to the gods, but they wanted more of an emotional relationship. Right? And when we get to Christianity here in a couple more weeks, I think that kind of idea of a mystery religion and linking the individual emotionally to the divine is going to help you understand the attraction of Christianity had to Romans during that period. But we're not to Rome. We're still in Greece. Enjoy week 4. See you during this week.